Hello everyone, my name is Irene Odonis. The brain is an amazing organ that controls all functions of the body and interprets information from the outside world. Intelligence, creativity, emotion, and memory are some of the many things that the brain governs. Let's start briefly describing the brain regions and their functions. The cerebrum. It is the largest and most complex part of the brain. The cerebral cortex is the outer layer of the brain made up of densely packed gray matter. It has gyrus, folds of the cerebrum. It has sulcus, shallower grooves, and fissures, deeper grooves. There are two cerebral hemispheres, the right and the left hemisphere, which are connected by the corpus callosum. It is structured into different areas called lobes. Each lobe has a specific function. Let's start talking about the frontal lobes. They are located in the front part of the brain, in the front part of each cerebral hemisphere. Their function is to control planning, decision making, social judgment, script production, emotional control, motivation, mood, voluntary motor control, abstract thoughts. The parietal lobe also is important in taste, somatic sensation, sensory integration, visual processing, spatial perception, language processing, numerical awareness. So, in resume, the main function of the parietal lobe is the integration of sensory data coming from both the inside and outside of the organism. The temporal lobe makes an important role in hearing, smell, emotions, learning, language comprehension, memory consolidation, verbal memory, visual and auditory memory. The temporal lobe is the second largest structure in the brain, and it is located on the sides of the head. The occipital lobe aids in visual awareness and visual processing, so we can say that occipital lobes are the part of the brain where images are processed. It is one of the smallest cerebral lobes located at the back of the brain, and there are two occipital structures, one in each hemispheres of the brain. The insula is located deep in the lateral sulci of the brain cortex and between the temporal, parietal, and frontal lobes. It's related to emotional and cognitive functions, emotional regulation, and the ability to understand and empathize with other people's emotion. It is involved in the perception of emotional stimuli and in the generation of appropriate emotional responses. It is linked to pain and perception. Let's start talking about another brain region, the cerebellum. Although it looks like a quiet, discrete structure because it is partially hidden by the cerebral cortex, the cerebellum is one of the areas of the brain with the highest density of neurons. In fact, more than half of the brain's neurons are located in this structure. The cerebellum has a special relationship with movement. It makes it possible for us to maintain balance, to coordinate simple and complex movements, and in general for the muscle of our bodies to respond faithfully and effectively to the orders issued by the brain. It also aids in speech. Another region of the brain is the brainstem, which is divided in three areas. The midbrain is the structure of the brainstem located in the highest position and closer to other structures located higher up, like the thalamus. It is the relay station between higher brain centers and the brainstem. It also plays a role in reacting quickly to visual and auditory stimuli reflexively. Just below the midbrain, we have the pons that aids in sensory roles in facial sensation like touch and pain, chewing, swallowing, eye movement. It also controls breathing and the sensation between sleep phases and posture. The medulla oblongata is the lowest part of the brainstem. It controls all type of automatic processes totally necessary for survival such as heartbeat and blood pressure. It also manages the control of respiratory functions, maintaining it at all times, showing salivation, gagging, vomiting, speech, coughing, sneezing, sweating, gastrointestinal control, head, neck, and shoulder movements. If the medulla oblongata stops working, it will cause death. Another brain region we have the encephalon, which is divided in two areas. Let's talk about the thalamus. It is a gateway to the cerebral cortex. Almost all input to the cerebrum passes by the thalamus. It is responsible for processing sensory info from stimuli in the human body related to vision, hearing, touch, and taste, regulates of emotions, and it plays an important role in storing short, medium, and long-term memories. Another area of the diencephalon is the hypothalamus. It is a small but extremely important area of the brain. It is located inside our brains, more or less in the center of it, below the thalamus. It influences both endocrine system and nervous system and the connection between both systems. It regulates satiety, which tells us when we are full, regulates the feeling of thirst to prevent us from becoming dehydrated. It regulates our body temperature. If the body is too hot, it activates processes such as sweat to lower temperature, for example. It also regulates cardiac rhythm that is essential for sleep cycles. It also regulates emotion. It participates in the emotion of anger, sadness, sexual satisfaction. And another important function of the hypothalamus is the production of hormones that facilitates childbirth, breastfeeding, for example. Here we have a diagram of the brain. Here we have the frontal lobe, the parietal lobe, the occipital lobe, the temporal lobe, the cerebellum, and the brainstem. If we dissect this part over here, we will be able to see the insula. And now the brainstem, we have the midbrain, the pons, and the medulla oblongata. The diencephalon area, we have the thalamus over here and the hypothalamus. And this is the end of my presentation about the brain regions and their functions.